Three identical twin boys disappeared without a trace from a small town in central Java in 1981. They vanished while playing in front of their own house. But 30 years later, the mother discovered an important detail hidden in one of the old family photo albums. A shocking discovery that will reveal what really happened. The afternoon sun shines on a simple housing complex on the outskirts of rural central Java near the Java border. Siti Marlina adjusts her wide-brimmed hat as she stands in the backyard of the Rama family home, watching the children play and the parents chat at a birthday party at Tawfiq Rahman's house. At the age of 60, Siti Marlina still carries herself with grace. Even though fine lines had surrounded his eyes that had spent decades searching faces in crowds were always searching. Her husband Hendra Marlina, 2 years older, was chatting with several men near the grill. They had arrived an hour ago to join in the celebrations as local residents had done for years. The birthday song has been sung, the candles have been blown out, the cake has been shared. The children now play freely, while the adults talk casually. Siti Marlina was half listening to her neighbor, Mrs. Nurhayati's story about her back garden when movement near the terrace door caught her attention. A man he didn't recognize walked into the backyard holding the hand of a boy about 8 years old. "Sorry we're late," the man said without greeting anyone in particular. There was a little incident at home. The child immediately freed himself from his father's grasp and ran towards the other children who were playing. As the child ran past her, Siti Marlina was stunned. The boy was wearing green plaid jumpsuits with bright yellow straps over a long-sleeved shirt. Her dark curly hair bounced as she ran. The combination hit Siti Marlina's psyche like a physical blow. Without leaving the conversation, he moved quickly across the yard. His heart was beating fast. He grabbed the boy's shoulders and turned his body to face him. "Where did you get this shirt?" he asked in a voice almost whispering. His hand reflexively moved to touch the child's curly hair. The boy's eyes widened in surprise. He turned around and ran towards his father. Dad, she screamed in fear. The father turned his head, his face showing worry, then immediately walked quickly towards Siti Marlina, who was still standing frozen. Her body was shaking slightly. "What's wrong, ma'am?" he asked, embracing his son protectively. Her tone was more curious than accusatory, but her body language clearly showed unease. "He touched me," the boy said, clinging to his father's side. "He scared me." The father's expression hardened slightly. "What's really going on? Why are you holding my child?" Siti Marlina's mouth opened, but no words came out. He reached out again towards the child's clothes, although his fingers stopped before actually touching. "This shirt. Where did you get it?" "Excuse me." The man immediately stood between his son and Siti Marlina. "What's wrong, ma'am? Why are you like this, Mom?" At that time, Hendra Marlina appeared by his wife's side, followed by several neighbors who began to notice the commotion. He embraced his wife's scent calmly, sweeping his gaze over the situation. "Sorry," said Hendra Marlina. His voice was calm even though his hands were shaking slightly. "My wife had no bad intentions." He looked at the child and Siti Marlina could feel her husband's body tense beside her. "Your child's clothes are very similar to what our children used to wear." "Our children, they are triplets," said Hendra Marlina slowly. "They disappeared 30 years ago. They also have green plaid jumpsuits like that with yellow straps and long sleeves. My wife must be very surprised." The neighbors began to whisper softly to show their understanding. Nai Rama, the host of the event, stepped forward and said softly to the man, "Yes, sir. The children of the Marlina family disappeared in 1981. A terrible tragedy." The whole neighborhood has been looking for them for days. The man's expression immediately softened. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. He looked down at his son's clothes. I bought these at a supermarket a few months ago. I really don't remember exactly when. City Marlena, still stunned, pleaded in a trembling voice. May I take a closer look at the clothes? I just want to know if they're the same brand. But Hendra Marlena immediately held her arm gently. Honey, this child isn't Farrell, isn't Irfan, isn't Rafi, don't scare him. She turned to the man. Forgive my wife, this is very hard for us. Nai Rama gently touched City Marlena's arm. Bakit, you look very pale. Maybe you should go home and rest. Hendra Marlena nodded gratefully. Yes, I think so too. She thanked the host and took her leave of the event respectfully to the father and son. If only we meet in a better atmosphere, said the father sincerely. I really don't know. We're new to the neighborhood and thought this birthday party would be a good opportunity to get to know our neighbors. It's not your fault, Hendra Marlena said reassuringly. He then ushered City Marlena out of the yard and walked together slowly down the 3 blocks to their house. Once inside, Hendra helped him sit on the sofa, then went to the kitchen to make some warm tea. When he returned and offered her the cup, City took it with trembling hands and took a slow sip. Her eyes began to fill with tears. I didn't mean to scare the child. He whispered, his voice breaking. I only saw his clothes. Hendra Marlena sat beside him and nodded slowly. I know you had an anxiety attack. It's okay. I can't forget them, Hendra, she said now with tears flowing freely. It's been 30 years. Hendra held her hand tightly. They must be adults now. All 3 of them. I know, City whispered. I feel embarrassed, always bringing up the past, making others uncomfortable. We don't need to forget our children, Hendra replied firmly. I was surprised when I saw the children's clothes. Very similar. Green plaid jumpsuits, yellow straps, long-sleeved shirts. City Marlena sat up straighter. I want to see another photo of them, Hendra. The one where they were wearing those clothes. Hendra hesitated for a moment. It's in a box in the attic. We haven't opened it in over 20 years. Please, Hendra, she pleaded. If it can calm me down, please take it. Hendra sighed, then nodded and went upstairs. City heard his footsteps upstairs, then the sound of the attic ladder being pulled down. A few minutes later, he returned with a dusty cardboard box, set it on the living room table, and wiped the surface with a towel. They opened the box together, slowly and reverently. As if the objects were made of glass, small toys, baseball gloves, 3 twin teddy bears, school assignments with gold stars and smiling faces. All of them a piece of time from a broken childhood. The family photo album is at the bottom, Hendra Marlena said. Her voice was hoarse with emotion. It was the last thing we kept. As they lifted the last layer of memorabilia, a leather-bound album emerged. Hendra carefully picked it up and placed it on his lap. The cover was worn with age. Even though it hadn't been touched in decades, they sat side by side on the sofa. Hendra opened the first page. Identical twins in the hospital. Then toddlers just learning to walk. Their birthdays with candles blown out in unison. They were always so united. City whispered, tracing her finger over a photo of the children building a sandcastle on the beach. City Marlena whispered, tracing one of the photos with her fingertip. A photo of her children building a sandcastle on the beach. Hendra Marlena turned the pages slowly, stopping at each photo, recalling the stories behind it until they finally arrived at the one they were looking for. The twins stood in front of their house, wearing green plaid jumpsuits with yellow straps over their long-sleeved shirts. They smiled broadly, their arms around each other's shoulders. This photo was taken the morning they went missing. Exactly 1 hour before it happened, Hendra whispered softly. City nodded and moved closer, looking more closely at her children's clothes. Look, Hendra, the clothes at the party are similar, but they're actually different. The green is different. Our sons are more dull, like an old style. The ones at the party are more modern, the checkered shirts are smaller, and the straps are different, Hendra continued. The concept is similar, but they're definitely not the same clothes. City wiped her eyes, taking a deep breath. I feel so guilty about my reaction to that child and his father. What were their names? His son is Arif. His father is Mr. Andika. They just moved to this neighborhood about 3 months ago. Hendra replied. I'll have to apologize to them later. City muttered, shaking her head slowly. I must have scared that child. They continued staring at the photo, remembering their last day together with their 3 sons. Hendra smiled as City told how Rafiq had insisted on wearing his jumpsuits inside out until he finally persuaded him, and how Irfan had already stained the knees of his pants with grass even before breakfast. As Hendra poured more tea into his cup, City suddenly slapped his arm quickly, almost making him cry. The tea spilled. Hendra, look at the back of this photo, she said tensely. Isn't that the red antique car that Farrell loved so much? Hendra put down the teapot and stared at the photo. At the very edge of the picture frame, the front of a reddish-brown Cadillac parked across the street. That's right, he said quietly. Memories began to emerge. Farrell was crazy about cars, especially that one. The 3 of them always begged to see the inside. When that car passed by, it belonged to Ustaz Husni Abdillah, City said. His voice started to rise with emotion. Their teacher at Al-Fatah Islamic Elementary School. Remember, he hardly ever rides it. He said it was his most precious treasure. The entire school community knows about the car. Yes, Hendra answered in agreement. The children treated the car like a treasure. We used to be such a close community, muttered the acquaintances, and Ustaz Husni was known very well. The kids loved it. He turned the photo over, looking for any written notes, and then looked back at the front of the picture. Are you sure this is a photo taken on the day they disappeared? Certain. Hendra answered. Why? Because as far as I know, Ustaz Husni had moved to another city at that time, said City. His brows furrowed. Remember how sad all the parents were when he changed schools? We even threw him a farewell party at school the day before he left. Hendra frowned. I'm sure this photo is from the morning they went missing. They lost the day. But that's strange, Disak City. If Ustaz Husni had really moved a week earlier, why is his car in this photo? Hendra put down the album and began to unpack the box again, going through the items that had been taken out earlier. Finally he found what he was looking for, an original Coda film envelope with the photo negatives inside. The processing date is clearly printed on the outside. Look, he said, showing City. This is proof that this film was printed 2 days after they disappeared. This photo must have been taken that morning. City rubbed her arm. His body was shivering even though the air in the room was warm. If that was indeed Ustaz Husni's car, maybe he saw something suspicious in our neighborhood at that time. The police must have asked. He was silent for a moment, thinking. But the police never said they interviewed Ustaz Husni. That means he actually moved before our kids disappeared. Hendra Marlena saw City's increasingly obvious anxiety and placed her hand gently on her shoulder. Honey, maybe this is just a coincidence. It could be that the car is not Ustaz Husni's, it could be someone else's. But I don't remember anyone else in this neighborhood having a red antique car like that. Siti argued, we are so close to all our neighbors we would know if they were there. Maybe it doesn't belong to the local residents, Hendra suggested. It could be a guest from next door. Don't worry about it too much. Yes, the police have checked all our family photo albums, including this one. They've also questioned everyone and followed up on all the leads. If it really was Ustaz Husni's car, they would have matched the license plate and told us. Siti took a deep breath as Hendra handed her another cup of warm tea. The warmth of the tea eased her anxiety a little. You're right, she said finally. Maybe it was just me. Hendra nodded in relief and closed the photo album. But C took one of the photos and held it in her lap, wanting to keep it close to her. Together they began putting the mementos back into the box one by one. Each one became a fragment of their son's past and the life they never lived. Once everything was back in order, Hendra glanced at the decorative clock above the fireplace and suddenly jumped. Oh God, I've completely lost track of time. I have a checkup scheduled for 11:50. It's already 11:30. On Saturdays, the clinic is only open until... Siti snapped out of her reverie. I forgot to remind you too. Dr. Hassan doesn't like it when the patient was late. She quickly helped Hendra prepare everything he needed. His BPJS card, a list of medications, and the blood pressure journal he had been keeping. Within 5 minutes, Hendra was ready to leave. Are you sure you'll be okay at home? He asked at the door. I'll be fine, Siti replied. I'm going to cook lunch, maybe take a nap. I'll cook dinner tonight. Don't worry about me. Hendra nodded, kissed her cheek, and hurried out to the car. After her husband left, Siti went into the bedroom and grabbed her phone from the nightstand. There was a message from Nai Sri Wulan, her old friend who used to work at the education office for almost 3 decades before retiring. The annual school retiree reunion is next month. Hopefully you and Hendra can come. We all miss you. Siti sat on the edge of the bed staring at the message. Nai Sri Wulan must have known Ustaz Husni professionally. Maybe she knows something. Although Siti didn't want to be suspicious of her teacher, who had been so gentle and kind to children, the strange feeling and questions she had been having since seeing the red antique car in the photo hadn't gone away. Without thinking, she tapped on Nai Sri Wulan's number and called her. Siti, what a pleasant surprise, replied the warm voice on the other end. Did you get my message about the reunion? Yes, God willing, Hendra and I will come, Siti said. How are you? Wulan, it's been a while, hasn't it? They chatted for a few minutes, exchanging news about old friends, their health, and their respective families. Finally, Siti steered the conversation to its true purpose. Wulan, do you remember Ustaz Husni Abdillah? He used to teach at Al-Fatah Islamic Elementary School in the early 1980s. Of course he does, he was a great teacher, and the children and parents all loved him. Do you know where he is now? Asked Siti, trying to sound casual. I remember him moving out of town, but I don't know where. A moment of silence. Actually, you might remember wrongly, Siti. Ustaz Husni never continued teaching at another state school. He never submitted a transfer letter to the office, not to the province, nor to another island. Siti immediately sat up straight. No, but we had a farewell party for him. He said he wanted to move to teach at another school. Isn't that right? Maybe he was just joking when he said that. Nai Sri Wulan said softly. Yes, you know how he used to speak, said Nai Sri Wulan. What I heard was that he moved to a remote area in central Java and founded a kind of farmers' Islamic boarding school for orphans, a kind of private foundation for immigrant children. Farmers' Islamic boarding school, Siti Marlena repeated, confused. I thought he moved to another province to teach. No, there's nothing like that, Nyai Sri Wulan answered reassuringly. Wait. A few months ago someone mentioned the name of the place. Just a moment. Oh yes, I remember now. His name is Ustaz Husni's Hope. Ustaz Husni's Hopes. Siti repeated slowly, recording the name in her memory. Why are you suddenly asking Ustaz Husni? Nyai Sri Wulan asked suspiciously. Siti hesitated for a moment, then said, I just remembered he used to have a red antique car and I saw a similar car in one of the old family photos. Yes, he does have that beautiful old car, replied Nyai Sri Wulan. But he rarely uses it. He uses the other car more often for daily needs. The antique one is more like a display of pride. Do you remember exactly when he left town? Siti asked. Her heart began to beat faster. Wow, it's been so long that I can't remember exactly. After hanging up, Siti Marlena went straight to her small study at home and opened her computer. She searched for information about Ustaz Husni's Hopes and found a simple website with very little information. The homepage displayed photos of young men and children working in the fields. Most had tanned skin and dark hair. They looked like children from Southeast Asian or immigrant backgrounds. She browsed the photo gallery, but nothing looked suspicious. It all seemed like a positive, nurturing environment. Ustaz Husni Abdullah's profile page mentioned his background as an elementary school teacher and his passion for helping underprivileged children. The mission of the Islamic boarding school focused on education, moral support, and creating a path to success for immigrant youth. Siti noted the address of the boarding school and saw that there was an email address, but no phone number. She stared at the screen, considering her next move. Maybe she could meet Ustaz Husni in person, show him the photo, and ask if the car was his. She glanced at her watch. It was 11:45 a.m. Western Indonesian time. There was still plenty of time. The journey was only about 90 minutes. If he left soon, he could arrive midday with plenty of daylight remaining. He grabbed his phone and called Hendra at the clinic. Hendra, how's the doctor's examination? Are you still waiting and haven't called? He answered. Why? I found important information, said Siti. He explained what Nyai Sri Wulan said about Ustaz Husni's Islamic boarding school. I want to go there today. Do you want to come? There was a pause on the phone. I don't know, Siti. I'm a bit worried. You seem too preoccupied with the coincidence of the car. I'm fine. Siti answered soothingly. I don't want to be suspicious. I also don't want to think about all sorts of things. But he used to be a good teacher. And if that is his car, I just want to know. Okay, said Hendra finally. But we should let you know first if we want to go there. The problem is that there is no number on the website, only email. I've sent a message, but it may not have been read. They agreed to meet at the clinic because it was located in the same direction as the Islamic boarding school. Hendra will finish his examination and he will take the bus there. I'm leaving now. Siti said she had already grabbed her bag. See you later. Siti Marlena left the house with sure steps, locked the door behind her, and then walked quickly to the redemption hall 3 blocks away. The heat of the afternoon in central Java was starting to take its toll, and he was relieved when the bus arrived just as he arrived at the bus stop. The 15-minute journey to the clinic passed quickly. Meanwhile, Benek City continues to be filled with questions about Ustaz Husni Abdullah and his red antique car. As he got off the bus, a young woman in a straw hat and bright yellow t-shirt thrust a colorful flyer into his hand. This Sunday Regency Farmers Market, the woman said cheerfully, and then quickly moved on to the next passenger. Siti glanced at the flyer as she walked towards the clinic entrance. The event lasts for 1 week and started yesterday. Every day there are different activities, culminating in a farmers market and various competitions this weekend. At the top of the Lebanon, Large print highlighted information about a special auction today at a location that turned out to be not far from Ustaz Husni's Islamic boarding school. Interesting. Gumam City then put the flyer into his bag as he stepped into the clinic. Inside, he saw Hendra Marlena at the cashier's desk completing the payment. He smiled when he saw his wife. Just in time, he said. Dr. Hassan said everything is fine. My blood pressure also dropped after changing the medication dosage. That's good news, Siti replied relievedly. Are you ready for our little adventure? A few moments later they were in Hendra's sedan following the GPS directions towards Ustaz Husni's destination. The landscape slowly changes from a residential area to increasingly desolate rice fields and fields. Have you heard back from your email? Asked Hendra. His eyes remained focused on the road. Not yet, Siti answered. He took a flyer from his bag. But look at this, I got this flyer earlier at the bus stop. This week there is a big agricultural event, and today there is an auction near Ustaz Husni's Islamic boarding school. Hendra glanced at the flyer as Siti held it up. I think he might be there too, Siti said while looking at the small map on the flyer. The location is in the same area as the Islamic boarding school. Only the address is different. We'll go to the Islamic boarding school first as planned, Hendra suggested. If necessary, we will check the auction. After more than an hour of traversing increasingly remote countryside, they turned onto a rocky road marked by a simple wooden sign bearing Ustaz Husni's wishes. The road leads to a group of buildings, a large traditional-style house, several barns, and barracks that appear to be used as dormitories. The place looked deserted. Only a few people were visible in the distance. As they got out of the car, a young man emerged from one of the barns. Hello, say hello to Hendra. Wave hands. The young man, who was around his early 20s and had a Southeast Asian face, approached with a friendly smile. Hello, how can I help you? We are looking for Ustaz Husni Abdillah, said Siti. This is the Islamic boarding school, right? That's right, this is his place. The young man answered politely. Do you have an appointment with him? Hendra shook his head. Not exactly. We were old friends when he was still teaching. We have sent an email to the address on the website. Oh, that's the old address. The young man answered after understanding. We are changing the email address, but the website has not been updated. Sorry. He looked regretful. Ustaz Husni is not here now. He and almost all the staff and children were taking part in the district farmers market event. There is an auction today. And we also open a stand to promote our social programs. Yes, we just heard about the event, said Siti, hiding her disappointment. She turned towards the car. Wait a minute, said Hendra, gently holding his wife's arm. Then he turned to the young man. Since we're already here, can we look around this place for a while? We want to know how Ustaz Husni built all this. The young man hesitated for a moment. I'll ask the supervisor on duty first. Please wait a moment. He walked away, took out his cell phone and began a brief conversation on the phone. When he returned, he was smiling broadly. Yes. I'll be happy to show you around for about 30 minutes. They followed the young man through the Islamic boarding school complex. He showed them the barn where they kept their livestock, the stables, and the farmland where they grew various crops. Throughout the tour, he explained their social programs. How they help immigrant orphans learn agriculture and farming while still receiving education and guidance. This is one of our special barns, the young man said as they approached a colorful building decorated with children's paintings on the exterior. This place is specially designed for young children to play, explore and learn in a fun way. This program was designed directly by Ustaz Husni. As soon as they entered, they saw a man arranging various equipment on low tables. She looked to be in her late 30s or early 40s with thick, curly black hair and fair skin. As the man smiled to greet them, Siti Marlena immediately noticed his striking wide smile. "Farrell, this is a guest from Ustaz Husni's old friend," explained their guide. They stopped by hoping to meet him. The man wiped his hands with a towel and approached. "I am Farrell, the activity coordinator. Nice to meet Mr. Hendra and Mrs. Siti Marlena," he said, shaking hands. He then pointed to the equipment he was arranging. "I'm preparing several demonstration activities for investors and invited guests who will be visiting this week. We want to show firsthand how we work and support the children here." He walked around the table with ease, explaining each activity station. "I've been here since I was 6 years old. Actually, Ustaz Husni saved me and brought me here when I had nowhere else to go. He used to be an elementary school teacher," said Siti, watching Farrell's movements carefully. "Our children are his students. He always has a way of dealing with the children of noble people." "That's right. He's very gentle," Farrell agreed. They continued to look around the room. One wall was filled with children's artwork, colorful crayon drawings, and collages of leaves, eggshells, and wheat pasted together to form unique shapes. Siti's gaze stopped on a picture. A red antique car was neatly decorated with colorful grains of rice meticulously pasted on it. The detail was impressive. "That's the car," Siti said, pointing to the painting. "I remember very well. That car was Ustaz Husni's favorite possession." Farrell nodded. "Yes, the car is still here. In fact, it was taken out this morning." He looked at the picture proudly. "Actually, that's my painting. I made it as an example for children. That's why it's neater than their work." He chuckled, pointing to another work that looked more chaotic. Siti felt a cold breeze creep over her skin like a strange wind on a hot day. He looked at Farrell more sharply, his curly black hair, wide smile, and the way he used his hands when he spoke. It all felt too familiar. Farrell noticed the stare and felt a little uneasy. "Hurry, ma'am. Everything is all right." Hendra immediately touched his wife's back gently. "Calm signal." Yes, sorry," said Siti quickly. "All these kids' crafts remind me of my kids when they were little." He hesitated for a moment, then asked quietly, "Do you have any siblings?" "Farrell," Hendra Marlena whispered. His voice was low but full of warning. Farrell chuckled awkwardly. "Yes, I do have a sibling. My sister is at the Regency Farmers Market with Ustaz Husni." He looked at his watch. "Sir, you should stop by if you have time. There will be a children's performance and an agricultural auction." They thanked Farrell. Then the young guide escorted them back to the entrance of the Islamic boarding school. As they walked, Siti Marlena glanced back again. Her mind was full of possibilities and questions she hadn't had time to express. When they reached the car, they thanked the young staff member who had guided the tour. Siti's hands trembled slightly as she fastened her seatbelt. Her mind was filled with the image of a man with curly hair and a wide smile. The child Ustaz Husni had saved when he was only 6 years old. In the car, Hendra started the engine and checked the GPS on his phone. "The auction is only 20 minutes from here," he said. "We'll definitely go there," Siti replied, her voice tense with enthusiasm. "I have to speak directly with Ustaz Husni." Along the dusty road that cut through the fields, Hendra glanced at his wife. "Siti, why did you ask Farrell personal things about siblings earlier?" Siti looked out the window, watching the expanse of rice fields that continued to change. "I don't know, I just had a strange feeling since I saw the painting of the antique car." Then her hair, her smile, she turned to look at her husband. They are very similar to our Farrell, Irfan, and Rafi. Hendra shook his head slowly. Honey, don't tell me you thought he was. They are so different just because of curly hair and smile. I know. Cut City quickly. Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. It's just that somehow I feel familiar. Hendra squeezed her hand gently, saying nothing more. They spent the rest of the journey in silence. Each one was lost in his own thoughts. Finally they arrived at the large field where the agricultural event was taking place. Colorful tents and booths lined the large field with large farm equipment displayed in the center. The place was bustling with farmers, ranchers, and families enjoying the atmosphere of a traditional market. There's no auction now, said Hendra while reading the schedule posted near the entrance. Seems to be over. They walked through the arena, occasionally stopping to look at the top livestock and the latest farming technology. After about 10 minutes, they saw a white tent with a large blue banner that read Ustaz Husni's hopes. As they approached, City's breath caught there. Standing while talking to a pair of guests who appeared to be potential donors was Ustaz Husni Abdillah. 3 decades had passed, but City recognized him instantly. His hair was now completely white. His face was full of age lines, but his speech was still as enthusiastic as ever. They waited until the guest left and then slowly approached. Ustaz Husni, who is Hendra Marlina? Husni Abdillah. The old man turned his head. His expression polite but foreign. Yes, can I help you? Maybe Ustaz didn't recognize us, said City. I am City Marlina. This is my husband Hendra. Our children are Farrell, Irfan, and Rafiq. Formerly a student of a religious teacher at Al-Fatah Islamic Elementary School. Ustaz Husni's eyebrows furrowed as he studied their faces. Sorry it's been so long. I am an old man now, almost 70. My memory is starting to get blurry. Believe it or not. City stepped closer. I was the one who organized the Ustaz's farewell party at that time with the mothers. If there is a woman with 3 identical twins who always follow her like ducklings, it is me, City Marlina. Slowly recognition began to appear in Ustaz Husni's eyes and finally he smiled. A smile that neither of them had seen for a long time. Of course the family of Marlina, Farrell, Irfan and Rafiq. All 3 of them are intelligent children. Ustaz Husni's smile faded a little. I'm so happy to meet you both after all these years. We were surprised to know about your cottage. Hendra said. This is a very impressive operation you built. Thank you, replied Ustaz Husni. This has been my life's work for the past several decades. The conversation then turned to the topic of the triplets. Ustaz Husni's expression became gloomy. I heard about missing children, terrible tragedies. I was very sad when I found out. I always thought you moved to another city, to another province to teach, City said. Her eyes watched his reaction carefully. Ustaz Husni shook his head. No, I'm staying in Central Java. I did go to another city to get certified and prepare for this project. He pointed around. Establishing this cottage has always been my dream. City leaning slightly forward. Mr. Ustaz, do you remember the exact date you left town? Was it before or after my children went missing? Before that, Ustaz Husni answered quickly. Definitely before. Because if not, the police would have checked me. He tilted his head. Why do you ask? Without answering, City reached into her bag and took out a photo taken from the family photo album. He handed it over to Ustaz Husni. I saw this photo this morning. Taken on the exact day the children went missing just 1 hour before. He pointed to the side of the photo frame. I noticed the red antique car in the background. Hendra stepped closer. That's your car, Mr. Fielding. You remember driving around our neighborhood that day. Ustaz Husni's expression changed slowly. His friendly smile disappeared, replaced by a tense seriousness. He stared at the photo for a long time. Silence. I can't remember exactly when I left town, he said finally, his voice softer. And I certainly don't remember being near your house or seeing the kids that day. He handed the photo back. Must belong to someone else. Hendra nodded and put his hand on Siti's shoulder. At least now we have the answer. Si also nodded, but she noticed the change in her husband's behavior. Suddenly tense, clearing his throat and shifting restlessly. Ustaz Husni looked at them with an expression that was difficult to read. Do you think that car has anything to do with your children's disappearance? We're not sure, Hendra replied. The police never mentioned it at the time, 1981. But we just realized it this morning. Ustaz Husni glanced at his watch. It's almost 3:30 p.m. We have to finish everything immediately. He turned to the two men behind the desk. The event ends at 4 p.m. Let's get everything packed up. Then he returned to Siti and Hendra. You should take a look while you can. In 5 minutes there will be a closing performance from the children of our boarding school. He pointed to a small wooden stage at the end of the area. Quite entertaining. Maybe you will enjoy it. Thank you, said Hendra. Nice to meet you again, Mr. Husni. As they moved away from the tent, Siti lagged a little behind. He heard Ustaz Husni's voice softly and urgently speaking on the phone. Leave immediately after the show. Call Irfan here. Yes, now. Siti fell silent, then slowly looked back. Husni was busy directing her staff, not paying attention to them. He immediately followed Hendra. His mind was full of questions and growing anxiety. They headed to a small outdoor stage where a group of children were gathered for the closing performance. Most of them looked like orphans from South Asian Indonesia, around 6 to 9 years old. Some are still kindergarten age. The children lined up on a simple wooden stage and began singing the folk song Mary in Spanish. Siti watched the show, but her mind wandered. He scanned the crowd, observing the staff, looking for anything suspicious. A few minutes later, movement at the edge of the stage caught his attention. A man emerged from behind the stage and walked quickly towards the vendor area. His steps were hurried. Even from a distance, Siti could see her thick, curly hair. Hendra, she whispered quickly while pulling her husband's arm. Look at that man, he pointed silently. That one that walks fast. Look at her hair. Doesn't he look like Farrell? Hendra followed his wife's gaze. His eyes narrowed as he focused on the figure walking away. Yes, he said quietly, the resemblance striking. You think they're twins? Asked Siti. His voice was tense with barely controlled excitement. Before Hendra could answer, Siti had already moved away from the crowd, slipping through the audience to get a closer look at the man's face. Hendra hurried after him, staying close. They circled the cotton candy vendor and positioned themselves where they could observe without being conspicuous. The man had arrived at Ustaz Husni's tent and was speaking with a serious expression. As they watched, the man turned his body slightly, enough to show his facial profile clearly. Siti gasped softly. The resemblance to Farrell is undeniable. They could be identical twins with the same wide smile, the same thick eyebrows, and the same expressive way of speaking. This must be the brother called Farrell Bisik Irfan, I think, who was called by Ust. Husni. Hendra's face turned pale. Same smile, same curly hair. Could they be Farrell and Irfan? They could be Farrell and Irfan. And if that's the case, it means they could be Farrell and Irfan. Our children, whispered Siti almost inaudibly. She held her husband's arm tightly. Do you remember how Rafiq always had a smaller body and narrower eyes? He is the most easily recognized because of his eyes and Irfan. He had thicker eyebrows and was always the most agile though calmer than the others. They continued to observe until Ustaz Husni and Irfan suddenly ended their conversation. Ustaz gave a sharp gesture, and the two of them started walking quickly towards the parking area, leaving the other staff in the tent without any confusion. Why are they in such a hurry? Siti's voice started to sound anxious. We have to follow them. I need to talk to that guy. He started to walk away, but Hendra caught his arm. Siti, wait. Maybe we are wrong. If they are truly our children, then Rafiq should be here too. Let's check this area first. If he is there, we can call the police to investigate Ustaz Husni. Siti hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. You are right. Besides, we know the location of the hut. If we need to go back. They moved quickly across the farmer's market area, scanning the faces in the crowd, checking behind stands and tents, but did not find a third man who resembled Farrell or Irfan. Maybe we were wrong, said Hendra. Although her voice was not convincing, Siti had already walked back to Ustaz Husni's tent where an elderly staff member was packing up the last of the equipment. He was probably in his late 60s with hands full of years of hard work in the fields. Excuse me, Siti said, trying to keep her tone normal. We went to the cottage this morning and met Farrell. Then we saw another man who looked very much like him. Irfan. Yes, they're brothers. The old man turned and nodded. Yes, they're twins. Twins. Siti repeated, exchanging glances with Hendra. The man chuckled. Actually, interesting fact, they're triplets. The third one isn't here today. She works at UST. Husni's private home, not far from the cottage. Siti and Hendra looked at each other. Their expressions reflected a mixture of hope and fear. Where is the private home? They asked in unison. The man seemed taken aback by the simultaneous questions and their suddenly intense tone. I'm sorry, but I can't divulge the owner's personal information. He handed her a brochure. This is the address of our cottage. If you'd like to know more about our programs, yes. Thank you, Hendra said, taking the brochure even though they already knew the address. We appreciate your time. They stepped away from the tent to a quieter corner so as not to be overheard. Hendra whispered, his voice trembling. Triplets. Triplets, and their ages are just right. Farrell said he'd been with Ustaz Husni since he was 6, Hendra said, running a hand through his hair. His expression devastated. This can't be just a coincidence. That antique car in the photo. That strange reaction from Ustaz. And now 3 men who look like twins. Our children, Siti said. Tears filled her eyes. After all these years, could we finally find them? They ran to the parking lot, scanning the area for Ustaz Husni or Irfan, but there was no sign of them. Once in the car, Hendra started the engine. We're going back to the Tani Islamic boarding school for orphans, he said firmly. His books gripped the steering wheel tightly. They were probably going there. As the car drove down the dirt road, Siti took out her cell phone and called 112. When the officer answered, she asked to be connected to an investigator and explained that this involved a case of missing children from 1981. Within seconds, she was connected to Inspector Bayu Wikiksana of the Missing Persons Unit. This is going to sound incredible, Siti said, her voice trembling slightly. But we're sure we've found the children. We went missing 30 years ago. He quickly explained everything. The photo with the antique car, meeting Ustaz Husni at the social lodge, and finding 2 men who looked identical to each other, along with a third brother who he said worked at the private home. They all looked the same age as our children. They would be 36 now. And their facial features were exactly the same. The person who took them was their elementary school teacher. She left the event in a hurry when we showed her the photo. I understand your concern, Mrs. Marlena, Inspector Bayou replied. His tone was calm but firm. But I need you to promise not to confront Mr. Husney alone. We are gathering additional information and tracking the location of his private home. My team is on their way to the lodge now, and I have also contacted the local police station. They will be there in 10 minutes. We are almost there, Hendra said, turning onto the gravel road leading to Ustaz Husney's House of Hope. If you see him, keep a safe distance. Inspector Bayou's warning. The fact that she left the event early with the man was very suspicious. But we have to be careful. We'll be careful, City promised. Keep the phone line open. They arrived at the location but parked far from the main building, hiding the car behind a row of trees so he could observe without being seen. Time seemed slow, there was no movement. Only one car was parked. Then after waiting what seemed like forever, 3 figures appeared from the main house, Ustaz Husney, Irfan and Farrell. They moved quickly to throw their bags into the trunk of Ustaz's car. They will go. City whispered into the phone. Ustaz, Farrell and Irfan. They all got into the car. Stay where you are. Inspector Bayou's instructions. We have found data on the cottage property registered in another name, not in the name of Ustaz Husney. We are issuing search warrants for his cottage and private home. As the Ustaz's car began to slowly drive away from the house, 2 police patrol cars appeared on the gravel road. Their lights were on brightly. The vehicles immediately blocked the exit. The officer has arrived. Report City. His heart was beating fast. Stay in the car until I give you instructions, the investigator replied. Through the windshield they saw 4 officers approaching Ustaz's car. Their hands were ready near the weapons. Ustaz Husney came out first. His hands were raised, his face showing both confusion and anger. Farrell and Irfan came out later, looking confused. One of the officers spoke at length with Ustaz, who then pointed towards the house and shook his head with a firm expression. The officer looked hesitantly at his colleagues. It seems they are doubtful, Hendra muttered. Ustaz is definitely highly respected here. It is true. The wind carried snippets of conversation. Social work community leaders must have misunderstood. I can't stand it anymore, said City, suddenly dropping her phone into her bag, but leaving the connection open. They will let him go. Before Hendra could stop him, C had already gotten out of the car and was walking quickly towards the crowd. Ustaz Husney called him in a voice that was firmer than he felt. Everyone turned their heads. Ustaz's face immediately hardened when he recognized them. Mrs. Marlena, said one of the officers as he stepped forward. Please return to your vehicles. We are handling the situation. But City reached into her bag and took out a photo from 1981 and held it up high for everyone to see. If you're even considering letting this man go, he said, then let me show you something. He showed the photo. These are my children, Farrell, Irfan and Rafiq Marlena. They disappeared 30 years ago on June 12, 1981. He turned and pointed at Farrell and Irfan. And here are 2 of them standing right in front of you. Farrell and Irfan stared at the photo. Their expressions changed from confusion to surprise. They came closer to examine the picture of 3 twin boys in green city jumpsuits. That's us, whispered Farrell to Rafiq. Is there a 3rd sibling? Asked one of the sharp officers. Both of them nodded slowly, still staring at the photo. I didn't do anything wrong. Defend Ustaz Husney. His voice started to rise. Save them. They were abandoned. They're my children, City said. Her voice began to crack with emotion. They weren't abandoned. They disappeared while playing in our front yard. One afternoon. She pointed to the edge of the photo. That's your car, right? Ustaz, the same red antique car that you still keep. Ustaz remained silent. His jaw clenched. The car is in the garage near the main house. Irfan said quietly. He still has it. Farrell looked at Siti and then at Hendra. Are you really our parents? They answered in unison. Tears streamed down Siti's face. But we were never imprisoned. That man lied to you all this time. You all grew up just like we always believed you would. We are 36 years old now, Irfan said, as if still trying to process the reality. That's right, Siti replied, nodding. You were born on February 15, 1975. The officers exchanged glances. The senior officer stepped forward. Mr. Husni, please turn around and put your hands behind your back. You are now the prime suspect in a kidnapping case. As one officer handcuffed Ustaz, another spoke over the radio to confirm the execution of a search warrant at a private home. Pondok Tenong became bustling with activity. Several additional police vehicles arrived. A forensic team searched the building. Meanwhile, detectives interviewed Farrell and Irfan separately. In the garage they found a red sedan. The paint was faded with age. But it was unmistakably the same car from the photo. In Ustaz's private office, they found the original license plate hidden in a locked drawer along with documents in the fake names of Farrell, Irfan and Rafiq. They should be named Farrell, Irfan and Rafiq, not these fake names, Siti told investigators as she watched the evidence being collected. I knew Farrell was Lucas because of his big smile. Irfan was Noah. He was always the most agile and had a slimmer body. So Rafiq must be Gabriel. They're not even of Mexican descent, Hendra added. Although our ancestry is mixed, so they could indeed look Hispanic. When asked about their third sibling, Farrell explained, Ustad's always kept Rafiq in the main house, not in the Pondok. She took care of the small children there, mostly immigrant orphans. He said we were saved, Irfan added. They said our parents were immigrants who committed crimes and were imprisoned for life. We believed because we were very young at that time. What did he do to you guys? Asked one of the detectives gently. Both of them looked uncomfortable. Nothing bad in the last 20 years finally, answered Farrell. But he expects absolute obedience. Everything must be done exactly as he ordered. But our childhood was very harsh, Irfan said quietly. He often punished us, ordering us to undress, touching us in strange ways, and then hitting us with a rattan cane. He said, that was punishment for being naughty or disobedient. Now we understand what really happened. But for years we truly believed that we were that bad. That he had to treat us that way for our own good. That's what he made us believe, especially Irfan. That night, as dusk enveloped the hut, a call came in from the team conducting a search at Ustaz Husni's private home. We found Rafiq, reported an officer along with 8 other children aged between 4 and 10. We are transferring them to the hospital for evaluation. Many looked scared and traumatized. What about Rafi? Siti asked anxiously. Confused but physically fine. We have already explained this situation briefly. He will meet Farrell and Irfan at the police station. Also with you guys. As night fell, Siti and Hendra were taken in a police car to the police station, leaving the place that for 3 decades had been both a prison and a home for their children. Our children, Siti whispered, holding her husband's hand tightly. We found them. The bright white lights in the police station cast sharp shadows on the worn linoleum floor. Siti sat in a small interrogation room. In front of him was an untouched stylophone coffee cup. Inspector Bayu Wikaksana sat across from him. The recorder on the table listens as City recounts the day her world was destroyed 30 years ago. At that time our environment was very close. It was clear that both of her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. Everyone knows each other. Mr. Husney used to be Mr. Howard was very respected. He is the children's favorite teacher. Sometimes he takes the children home with their parents' permission. Of course he explained that fateful day. His voice was calm even though the wound in his eye had never truly healed. At that time, Hendra and I were at home, but we often let the kids play outside for a few hours. 1981. Times were different. All the neighbors knew the kids, so we felt safe. Did you see them when they were taken away? Inspector Bayu Lunak asked. City shook her head. I was cleaning in the back kitchen. Hendra was fixing something in the backyard. None of us were looking out the window. Her voice was hoarse. 1 minute they were in the front yard and the next minute they were gone. The investigator nodded sympathetically as he took notes. Mrs. Marlena, we've interviewed Mr. Husney and the boarding school staff. Given his age and health, it seems he decided to confess rather than fight the charges. City straightened, her attention fully focused. What did he say? He said he always felt connected to the triplets. That's what he said. That afternoon before he was supposed to leave town, he decided he wanted to take them with him. The inspector opened his notes. He lured them in with ice cream and a ride in his vintage car. The kids, especially Farrell, were captivated by the car. Farrell loved it. Whispers. The kidnapping had been planned beforehand. He had prepared important items and falsified documents to cross the district border. Some time later, he returned to the area and set up the boarding school under a false identity. He bought the remote land with cash under the name of a fictitious company, then claimed to run a social institution for migrant children. But how come there were no witnesses? Asked Hendra, who has now been summoned to the interrogation room to hear the results of the investigation. And how come the police never found him? There were no screams, no resistance that would have attracted anyone's attention. Inspector Bayu Wikaksana explained. Mr. Husney, known at the time as Mr. Howard, was a highly trusted figure. He offered ice cream and a ride in his luxury car. The twins often walked around the block. So maybe, City added, no one was suspicious seeing them with him. Exactly, Inspector Bayu replied with a nod. After taking them out for ice cream, Fielding convinced them not to go home. He said their house was dangerous and that their parents were involved in bad things. Gradually he brainwashed the children. They trusted him completely and that made it easy to manipulate them. They were only 6 years old at the time. Hendra held City's hand, his face tense. He told them that they were orphaned immigrant children. The investigator continued. That their parents were hiding their origins. That they were living illegally in this country and you have been sentenced to life in prison. He slowly built all these lies, even making fake photo albums to support his story. So the motive for the kidnapping was just admiration? City asked in disbelief. The inspector's expression became more serious. We investigate the background. Fielding lost his entire family in a house fire in the early 70s. His wife and 2 twin children. It seems like he has a psychological disorder even though he looks normal from the outside. From statements and psychological evaluations, he began to believe that there were certain children who were destined to be his. Especially children who have strong emotional bonds like triplets. City closed her eyes, trying to digest the sick logic that had stolen 3 decades from her family. So what now? Asked Hendra. Fielding will face multiple charges: kidnapping, child abuse, illegal confinement, identity fraud, and more. The young children found in their private home are under evaluation, and we are working to identify and locate their families. The investigators are standing by, but I think there are 3 people who have been waiting to meet you for quite some time. He opened the door and spoke quietly to the officer in the hallway. A few moments later the door opened again. Farrell, Irfan and Rafiq, or real names Lucas, Noah, and Gabriel appeared at the door. They have become grown men. But for City, their little faces were still clearly visible in those adult lines. Lucas' wide smile, Noah's thoughtful gaze, and Gabriel's smaller stature. For a moment neither moved, 30 years of separation hanging like an invisible wall between them. A life full of missed birthdays, graduations, heartbreaks, and unshared accomplishments. Then City stood up from her chair, her sobs breaking from her throat. He stepped forward hesitantly. One step, then another. Hendra stood by her side. Tears flowed shamelessly down the aging face. "My children, Bicyc City, my beautiful children." There was something in his voice that broke the silence. Luke moved first. 3 long strides across the room, then hugged his mother tightly. Noah and Gabriel soon followed. Hendra then stepped forward to complete the circle. They stood there. 5 people held each other, as if afraid of losing each other again. Tears flowed together, wiping away 3 decades of grief in a flood of emotions. "I never stopped looking for you," said City Leary between her tears, touching their faces one by one, recognizing the contours that had changed from boys to grown men. "Not a single day." "We don't know," Gabriel whispered. "We thought you were gone, but we're here now," Hendra said. His voice was heavy with emotion. "We're all finally together." Outside the interrogation room window, night had fallen completely. The stars began to appear in the sky of central Java. And inside, a family that has been destroyed by a man's obsession begins to take the first steps toward recovery. Holding each other in the harsh bright light of the small police station, they were finally miraculously whole again.